right, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Danny Casale, creator of Coolman Coffeedan.
Oh, yeah, thanks. Hello, thank you.
There we go, all right.
Yeah.
So welcome, everybody. How's everybody doing today?
Nice. Nice.
All right, good. So this is just gonna be between me and him, right? You guys are...
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So let's talk. What is Coolman Coffeedan?
Yeah, I mean, so, you know, my real name is Danny Casale, and my alias is Coolman Coffeedan, and I just make these weird blobby animations that tell you it's all gonna be okay, and that you're special, you're loved, you're not nearly as ugly as you may think you are when you look in the mirror. You know, all those things that buzz around in our head. These little characters that I made act as that reminder, and I've done it for the past few years, you know. So I started in 2017 with my first animation that for no reason just blew up, just went totally viral, and I never really animated before. And I just kept animating after that, and it kept growing, and it kept getting bigger and bigger, and just kind of turned into this thing, you know, this movement. And now I'm here in Lithuania talking to you. So 6 years of Coolman, and I don't plan on stopping anytime soon.
So what do you think I mean, we live in a hard world.
Sure.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening right now, especially here in Lithuania. We're very close to wars and stuff. Do you think that there's something about the world as it is, excuse me, the world that it is reactionary, and that's why your positive message resonates so much?
I think it's definitely reactionary to how we find out about this news, which is oftentimes through social media, which can be a really good thing in a lot of cases and a really bad thing. And as it so happens, my first animation that blew up was a animation about you know, not using the internet for negativity and using it for positivity, because I truly believe that the internet is an amazing tool that can be used for amazing things. But we as humans choose to use it for bad and spreading negativity because it gets clicks, right? You know, spreading bad news, like spreading drama, you know, and we just intake so much. Oh my God, look who she's hanging out with. You know, my friend didn't invite me to this thing, you know, whatever. And it's no matter what it is. Unfortunately, there's a lot of negativity that compounds on social media. That's just how it is. And I always hated that growing up. And, you know, I'm 28 now, and I was born into the internet age, and, you know, I would always see people fighting in the YouTube comments and fighting on Facebook and fighting on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm like, why is there so much negativity? Like, if aliens were to, you know, look at social media and they knew nothing about humans, they'd be like, damn, these people suck, man. But I don't think it's an accurate representation of us. I think humans are inherently beautiful and creative, and we all do truly want to get along, but the internet doesn't necessarily reflect that. And so what I realized is, how great would it be if I could be one of the positive voices that you scroll upon on your timeline? And you know, rather than just me sitting there in front of a camera and just saying like, hey, it's all gonna be okay, like who would wanna watch that? I always chose to express myself through my art and my doodles. And I would always doodle on my school notes and my homework. That's how I chose to pass the time and just, you know, express myself. Because I was also a very self-conscious kid, always anxious. I would have like a panic attack a day before school. I just hated school so much. And these doodles were there for me. And once I was, you know, in my early 20s, I was like, you know, the internet's such a weird, bad place right now. Maybe these doodles could help other people, because they've helped me my whole life. And so to answer your question, I think, you know, we're definitely reactionary. And I think it's even easier to react in a negative way. But I think I discovered a fun little thing with these characters, these blobby little weird things that tell you positive things, and that makes you reactionary in a positive way. It makes you laugh, makes you feel that warm little glowy feeling in your chest, makes you want to share it with someone you love, a family member, a friend, whoever, a lot of people comment on my animations saying like, oh, this is like free therapy, right? So it's like, if it could be that, that's awesome. And I hope people can have more positive reactions to more things, you know, in the world.
Sure. Now, does this come, again, that reactionary thing, does it come from your background where you, without, not necessarily, you don't have to answer, but, in your personal life, were you loved and encouraged and, and that, or were you seeking that and, your little blobby creatures became a way to self-actualize, not just for everybody else, but for yourself as well?
Yeah, I think I always had a great, family. My parents always supported me, and I'm very fortunate because I, of course, recognize that so many people don't have that. But, a big reason that I hated school so much was because everyone in school was just kind of nasty. I was always an artsy, creative kid, and, growing up in a small suburban town, there was just really none of that. And this is also like before, TikTok obviously was a thing, but before, there was as many content creators as there are out there today, like all of you guys, so creative and artsy and expressing yourself. It really wasn't the case, say 10 years ago, over 10 years ago when I was in high school. And they didn't know what the hell I was doing with my YouTube videos. I would always rush home after school to film my comedy skits in front of a camera and edit them and upload them. And people would find them and be like, that's Danny, the kid with dark circles under his eyes, walking around the hallways all quiet, like that little weird kid, he's on camera with this whole alternate personality, this whole alter ego, just being this comedy dude and this YouTuber, and nobody really knew. And I think that's still the case with people today, right? People are always, of course, scared to share their passion, whatever they're passionate about, whether it's their TikTok channel or their drawings or their cosplay or whatever it is. That's one of the most vulnerable things you could do, especially while you're still in school, because you're feared of being judged. And I would say that's where a lot of my self-esteem issues came from growing up, was school. I mean, it's a notion as old as time itself. People dread going to school because they feel like they don't fit in, they don't belong. And I think that what I hope to do with my doodles and my animations is to ease that feeling a little bit, because here I am an adult now, and I made it out of the school system, but it was rough getting through all that, and I know that it's not an easy thing to do, even if you get into college and even the work world, you go into your first job, and people have a way of not being the kindest to each other no matter what environment. And my sincere hope is that through my animations I could make people a little more kind and understanding to one another, so yeah.
That's awesome. But now, we've all heard about the idea of the anonymity of the internet, that you can hide behind, right? So yes, you are Danny Casale. But Coolman Coffeedan is a different person, really. And do you find that frees you up, or that you when you become Coolman, that it puts on a mask and you let it out through your drawings to kind of release that? Or how do you feel? It's still easy to do these drawings now that you're becoming successful?
Well, no, it's a good question. I think over time it's becoming more of one thing. Just because it just became more and more and more a part of my life. But in the beginning, it was definitely still am I going to be able to pay my bills or my rent through this thing? And it wasn't necessarily there the first year or two. And so, yeah, I would go about my regular life, and then I would go about, my Coolman Coffeedan, little side hustle thing. But the Coolman Coffeedan pages just kept growing in popularity, and then it started leaking into my normal life, where, my friends started calling me Coolman, and my family members, my siblings started saying, that new animation you posted was so funny. But I would say it really transcended when I started getting the more like big boy awards, which is hilarious. Like when I got Forbes 30 Under 30, that's when my grandpa called me and was like, oh, cool. Like it took all that to get, you know, like my grandpa and my parents and like the older people in my life, you know, who they don't care or even understand what 1 million followers means, but they see Forbes and they're like, oh, wow, good job. And it's funny, right? Because different things mean different things to different people. And but I think today, you know, it's kind of funny. Like I truly feel like I put out my authentic self out there on social media. I think it started as maybe two different worlds, but it converged into one, and that's one of the hardest things for any artist or creative to do, which is to feel you can do that and to feel like you can be yourself in front of a crowd. But I think I finally, you know, got there, and especially, you know, the past few years where I really started opening up about my personal emotions and my personal story and things that I'm going through. My fan base has always been so supportive and kind. So it feels like very safe for me to be myself, even though there's always going to be nasty haters out there. You know, whatever. It's the internet, right? Can't be perfect. But I would say I am Danny, but I am Coolman Coffeedan as well. Yes.
So is there a pressure on you to always be that kind of beacon? Or do you sometimes just wake up in the morning and go, no, fuck it, today it's not happening?
You know, I've talked about burnout a few times because, yeah, especially after COVID, it's so easy to just be exhausted nowadays because we all went through so much the past few years, even though, like, everyone kind of forgot about like COVID now. Like it's like, no, we went through like some traumatizing shit the past few years, and then things keep happening. Of course, bad things in the world happen often to just, you know, keep us like in this state of like I don't know, like if I could keep going, like with whatever you know it is that you're doing, a project or your work or your hobby or whatever, just even your positive outlook on life. It of course can be exhausting. So of course I'd be lying if I said some days I feel like I just like want to press the snooze button 1,000,000 times and just skip that day, but that just means you're human, right? And I try to remind myself of that. It's because I think a lot of people get freaked out. They're like, oh my God, I feel like I can't even get out of bed today. I feel like I'm just slugging it, you know, but that just means you're human. It's okay. It's okay to go easy on yourself. I think the grind culture, the hustle culture was like really pushed on us this past decade or so. It's like pack out every day. Like if you're not like a billionaire by the time you're 20, you're a failure. It's like, what? No, it's not realistic. Like how about we focus on being happy and like having great relationships with the people we love and feeling like you can express yourself without being judged. Like those simple values in life, right? We can't ignore those. So I would say I do feel like that, and a lot of people feel like that, of course. But that only means that you're here, you're alive. We're all in this game together, and there's good days and bad days. And as long as you keep pushing through, you're doing the damn thing, you know.
So if you're having a bad day, do you ever like grab some of your comics and go, oh yeah, that was a good day?
Yeah. More and more with every passing year, you know, which is funny because I'll watch an animation of mine from a year ago or 5 years ago or even maybe like a month or two ago, and it'll bring me happiness and it'll bring me peace and it'll remind me of the message that the character, even though I wrote it and I made it, it'll have the effect on me that I was trying for it to have the effect on with other people, which is ironic. But what an honor for my own art to pop up in my own life as I continue to go on and be able to do that. It's a magical feeling, yeah.
That's great. So what is your artistic background? You said school wasn't your thing, and your drawings are not... can we say refined? Would that be?
Oh, they suck sometimes. Yeah.
So how did you learn how to do what you do?
Well, yeah, I always, like I said, I always doodled, right, growing up, even though I never went to art school or illustration school. I just would doodle on my notes and my homework, and even on like the school lunch trays and like the radiator next to me in chemistry class, and I would get yelled at sometimes. But for the most part, my teachers knew that that was me, and they supported it. Never would have thought that I could do it for a living. I, of course, always hoped that I could, but never thought it was possible. And so I went to college for filmmaking, which to me was the closest thing, because I also always made home movies growing up. I'm the oldest of 3 other siblings, so would always like make them be the little actors and like run around with like ketchup on their neck and have that be fake blood and be like a fake action movie or whatever. It was like, that was my childhood. And went to school for filmmaking because I said, I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be a storyteller. I want to do this for a living. And even that, man, like, you know, went to school in New York City, got rejected from a bunch of film schools that I really wanted to go to. So I went to the one that took me and made a ton of amazing friends there. And I always say, if anybody's on the fence about going to university, you know, give it a shot, you know, maybe if you're on the fence, because even if you learn nothing, the people you meet there can change your life forever. Those could be lifelong connections, right? So still friends with all my guys and girls from almost 8 years ago now. So, but I wasn't learning anything. It wasn't furthering my knowledge of film. They weren't even having me make movies. I was like, what am I doing? It got to the point where I was like sneaking script writing for my own films in class. And I thought this was a waste of time. So I took a year off. I convinced my parents to let me take a year hiatus. Little did they know, I never went back. I kind of just dropped out after 2 years, but maybe I'll go back someday. But what happened during that year hiatus is I really, you know, got to hone in on my craft and what I wanted to do. And for the first time, I remember how weird of a feeling it was to not have to worry about school. That was the first time in my life since I was a baby, from pre-K to college. That was the first year where I was able to just go all in. And I remember how I always wished I had that reality, like the ability to have all the time in the world to go all in. And I just experimented with everything. I did a lot of short films. I did a lot of music videos, you know, went on Craigslist and just like applied to ads of people looking for whatever needed to get done with video or art or whatever. And towards the end of that year hiatus, I made my very first animation, which is an animation called Snakes Have Legs, which is that animation that I mentioned before about using the internet for good. And just a random 3 a.m. idea that I had while brushing my teeth and just not thinking much about it. And I thought, I should make this animation before I fall asleep and forget about this idea in the morning. Let me just get it out there. And I spent an hour making it, posted it, went to bed, and about a week later, my life changed forever because that animation resonated with everybody. It got translated to every language around the world. It's possible some of you here in Lithuania have seen it. It just went everywhere like wildfire. And that was the first time where something that I created did that. And I said, wow, that works. Like I was, I recognized that was my window of opportunity. And then I just kept animating after that. So I think, and then of course the pages just kept growing and growing and growing and growing. And I pivoted from storytelling through film into storytelling in my art. And that would not have happened if I didn't go to college to realize that traditional film wasn't for me. That was a big discovery. And I was able, again, very fortunate that my parents allowed me to take that year off. Very fortunate that I was able to experiment and float a little bit. But that was when everything changed for me. And that was because I realized that I still hated school.
Well, sometimes you can learn, what doesn't work, and that's just as important. I mean, I know in most creative things, it's like, what don't you like? Why doesn't it work for you? And then you can adjust and adapt to that. But so how does it feel? You wake up one morning and realize that, but has anybody here seen Snakes with Legs? Why don't
Snakes Have Legs? Yes. Oh, wow! Look at that.
I mean,
that's cool. That's cool. That's going to be a core memory right there.
There you go. There you go. So, I mean, but how does it feel to wake up one morning and realize that, holy crap, people are looking at my stuff and are getting what I'm putting out?
It was a really surreal feeling because, you know, this is 2017 when this happened, so TikTok didn't exist yet. And nowadays on TikTok, you could post a video of your dog doing a weird thing and you could have 0 followers. And that video can get 1 million views easy. And I think maybe a few of you might have experienced that. You posted a video on TikTok and it got a bunch of views, right? And it's like, oh, this is an awesome feeling. You get that dopamine hit and it's like, wow, and you want to do the next one. But in 2017, there was really no platform where that was possible. If you had 0 followers, nobody was gonna, it was very, 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 very hard to get new people to see your stuff. If you had 0 followers, it unfortunately probably meant you get 0 views. And that's why TikTok became so popular, because it broke, you know, their algorithm broke out of that, which is great. But yeah, when I first started animating and experimenting and doodling and putting that out on social media, like I would have like my grandma comment and like it on Facebook, and I'd be like, oh, I'm glad she likes it, but like, dang, it's hard to get in front of new people. And eyeballs are always the toughest thing to get on your stuff, right? But it's not necessarily the case anymore, and tools like TikTok make it significantly easier. But in the beginning, like, you know, when that first video hit, the feeling of having, you know, hundreds of millions of people see this thing that I created, and then to see like meme pages like rip it and re-upload it, and then see like translations of it and like derivatives of it, and just like all these things come out of this thing that I made. That was such a weird feeling, and the only way I could describe it is like, you know, let's say you took a photo, right, on your iPhone, and you shared it with your friend, and it just, you know, then it just kept getting shared, like that photo, and then it just kept getting, and then all of a sudden it was everyone's iPhone wallpaper, and people started printing that photo out and framing it in their bedroom wall, and they started putting it on their t-shirt and stuff, like, and you're like, that's mine. Like, none of that would exist if I didn't take that photo. And that feeling, it was kind of stressful in a way, but that feeling is what made me realize that I don't have to be a Renaissance artist. I don't have to be a professional anything. I don't even have to have a plan. I could just keep creating in this style, and as long as it makes people think, or as long as it makes people laugh, or as long as it's an enjoyable 60 seconds to watch, it'll work. It'll get out there. And I hope no matter what craft that you guys have or whatever interests you have, you just take that and use it to give whatever you're working on a shot, and just put it on social media, because you truly never know who's going to see it, what's going to happen with it. It could change your life, as crazy as that sounds. So.
Cool. So, all right, I've got 2 different questions here, and I'm not quite sure which way to go with it. The first is, we mentioned earlier this idea of that grind, right? If you're not a billionaire by the time you're 20, all right, what do you do if you wake up and you say, you know, hey, that's my picture, and you're wearing it on a shirt, and you've put it on this, and you're selling it on your thing? At what point do you say, you know, yeah, altruism is great, and I'm glad that my message is out there, but you want to pay me? Or do you just kind of go, the message is the more important thing, and if people are resonating, then that's okay?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? Because it's a double-edged sword. For one, imagine if you said like, oh, I don't want this to go viral unless like everyone paid me $1, right? It's like, that's not gonna happen, right? So you don't wanna get in your own way. To an extent, you want your stuff to just get out there, and you want people, you know, I'm always giving out free stickers. If you see me out there, I got stickers on me, and say what's up, and I'll give you one. Like, there's that value of just, you know, giving. On the flip side, you have to value yourself as an artist. And, I spend time doing this, and I bend over backwards for my craft, and I've dedicated years and years and years of my life to building this thing, and then to kind of stand there and have someone who says, oh, hey, I'm this big company, I'm this brand, I want to work with you, and you want to be like on your hands and knees and be like, yes, this would be incredible, please, this would bring me to a whole new level. But you can't do that. You gotta take a step back and reserve yourself and be like, oh yeah, you have to pay me money. Right. And then they're gonna be like, how much money? And you'd be like, and then you gotta tell them a number that is high because you're valuable. And that feels so weird and uncomfortable. Artists never wanna do that. They never feel comfortable doing that, nor should they. It's not your role. And eventually you get a team that does it for you. But in the beginning, you have to do it for yourself. But I think it's a little bit of both, right? Because in order for it to get to that point where people are paying you and brands want to pay you and whatever, you're coming to Comic-Con on the other side of the world, like you have to get to that point. You have to just give that free value, and that free value may be in the form of a viral Instagram video or a bunch of them, or free stickers, or just whatever. Getting your name out there, getting your art out there, that's the hardest part. And I think if you do that for free, because you love it, out of the love for it, while keeping your bills paid and being able to live comfortably and all of that, but if you're able to do that, then I think then the money comes, right? But you have to chill for a little bit in the beginning, unfortunately. Sorry.
I have a writer friend who says, if you can feed your dog using nothing but the power of your imagination, then you're doing okay. And I think,
I like that. Yeah.
I think it's a great quote. But now, okay, so then the other side of this is, you mentioned that when you started 6 years ago, there weren't the outlets, but now you can film your dog on TikTok, have no followers, but your dog is doing something ridiculous. You get the 1 million views. So what causes that longevity to get to the point where everything is getting that 1 million views? Or by the same token, is there now this democratization? It
sounds good to me. Yeah.
Of content where the barrier to entry has become so low that in order to stand out, it's almost impossible.
I think it's a new game now. Yes, the barrier to entry is lower. I mean, you have to think about it, right? When I was in high school making my YouTube videos, you needed a camcorder, you needed a computer with editing software on it, you needed to know how to edit, you needed to know how to export and upload it to YouTube, you had to know how to make a YouTube channel, all these things, right? And now all you need is your phone, right? You make a TikTok account, you don't need to know how to edit anything. You film, it's done. You put it out there, you have 1 million views. Easy. But that also means that everyone else can do it too. And so I think it does a few things. I think for one, there's officially no excuses. You have everything you need, right? If you have a phone, you could do whatever you want to do. You can make your wildest dreams come true. But that also means, your neighbor, who's a 70-year-old woman with an iPhone is doing the same thing, and maybe she's like filming her cats and getting more views than you, and you're like, dang, what the hell? So there's a lot more competition out there. And for the cream to rise to the top, I think you do have to stay consistent. You have to continue putting yourself out there. Even if you have a hit, even if that weird dog video that you filmed, got 1 million views, you're going to get hooked on that feeling. You're going to make the next video and it's going to get 300 views, and you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to throw in the towel. This isn't for me. It's like, no, keep going. Find out what your voice is. Start putting yourself out there. Start learning. I'm a big fan of learning by doing it, right? So even with my pages that I have now, right, and millions of followers across my pages, it's not, the graph isn't like this. It's, month to month, it's a roller coaster. And it only gets harder with these algorithms now that more and more people are content creators. it's like the algorithm is always changing, always, always, always changing. And you as a creative can't let that affect you and your self-esteem and your creativity. So, you know, I think even though the barrier to entry is lower than ever and anybody can and you have a lot of people uploading shitty content that get a lot of views, and it could make you mad. It could be like, my content's amazing. I spent, 20 hours drawing this photorealistic piece and it got, a fraction of that cringy meme that someone posted. It got 1 million, whatever. But that's just the game, right? And it has nothing to do with your creativity or the value you put on your work. It has nothing to do with that. I truly believe, I was talking to my other animator buddy who's here, Catnips, just last night. We're talking about, you win nowadays in social media by just not giving up. As cringy and cliche as that sounds, if you just keep going, I have it tattooed on my arm. Keep going. And it's easier said than done, right? Because like, keep going means you just keep going. What does that mean for 6 months, a year, 5 years, 10 years? Keep going. Just keep going. Just keep figuring it out. Even if you're getting 5 likes a photo, if you're still posting, that means you're continuing to give it a shot, which is more than a lot of people can say. And the game will continue to change, is the other thing, right? So I tell you this today, but tomorrow could be a whole different thing, and the world is ever changing. So that's not to be ignored, of course, but I think no matter what, I like to think if you keep going, you'll be all right.
So do you pay attention to the likes, or does your team do it and they just don't tell you? You just do what you do and they're following the numbers and you just put out the things?
I used to not pay attention to the likes, but I think I pay attention to them a little bit more nowadays because it's, of course, grown into a little bit more of a business or a brand or whatever you want to call it. And I think I've learned that I have to pay attention. I'm like, oh, okay, just by like maybe doing this thing a little bit differently, this post did a little bit better, right? And just fine-tuning things along the way. And that's another double-edged sword. Of course, you want to pay attention to the metrics and the analytics, and now I know that I have fans here in Lithuania. What a powerful metric that I now know. I wouldn't have learned that if I didn't explore.
We're going to see the con on the next animation.
Exactly. There you go. But continuing to explore and poke around and paying attention to all that info is of course important, but you don't want to get too caught up in it, right? Because that makes the art suffer and that kind of lowers the quality of the thing that you're doing. I hate to say all these answers are double-edged swords, but it's kind of like it's like a little bit of both in these things. It's a balance, and that's why it's so hard to do these things. A lot of people are like, that's not for me. It sounds terribly hard, and they're right, and that's why creatives are some of the weirdest people you ever meet, because they're all over the place. They have to be their own businessman, and they have to be their own hype man, and they also have to keep themselves humble and think they're not shit. Like all these things, it's so complicated. It's crazy. But so many artists throughout history were crazy. So, now you know why Van Gogh cut his ear off, I guess, Well,
that's what they say, right? If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
So I still have plenty of questions, but do any of you have any questions? We can, open the floor. There's a microphone here in the middle if anybody has any questions. Otherwise,
don't be shy.
We can keep talking, but if anybody has any questions.
It's okay if you don't. It's okay.
Okay, what makes you happy?
Oh, wow. See what happens when you don't ask questions, No.
Blame you.
What makes me happy today is, of course, very different than what made me happy, say, 5 years ago or even 6 months ago. I think I'm continually learning about myself in this weird world that, of course, keeps getting more complex. When I started traveling again and traveling around the world and meeting folks like yourselves, once the world opened back up post-COVID, I realized what made me happy was the fact that I'm able to connect with so many people through my art. For a few years back there, that just wasn't the case. And it started to feel like they weren't humans watching my stuff. They weren't actual people with stories from around the world, with, you know, interests and dreams and personalities. They just started to feel like numbers, even though people were commenting, and I read them, and I read the messages, and I love them, and they, you know, I think those definitely kept me going during that time. But, you know, it just, we got so glued to, like, the phones and the computers and the digital of it all, where these things just started feeling like numbers and pixels. And what makes me happy is truly the fact that I'm able to do this for not only for a living, but be able to connect with all of you and connect with people through this thing. And some of these people become new friends and people that inspire me, right? And I try to compare that to, you know, what my life maybe could have been if I, you know, didn't take that chance and make that one weird animation way back when. That changed everything. But this is my life today, and I'm able to truly do what I feel like I'm put on this earth to do, which is make weird art, make people feel things, and through that I'm able to, you know, go to places I never would have been to otherwise, and meet people I never would have met otherwise. And I love people, man. I think you know, it brings me so much inspo. It gives me a lot of material. Maybe I'll turn one of you into an animation someday. You'll just see yourself pop up in my little universe. But I would say that's a long-winded answer of saying that's what makes me happy. That and coffee. Coffee makes me really happy.
There, that's what we're getting at. It's like, yeah, that stuff's all good, but the coffee.
I'm literally drinking it right now. Yeah, that's great.
That's the important thing. Well, okay, but then that brought up the second question, right? You're looking around. Do you got a sketchbook with you, and you know you see somebody that looks interesting, especially at a con, right? Oh, okay, that's interesting, right? Do you take notes? Ideas come, you jot them down?
Mainly on my phone. Yeah, mainly on my iPhone. Like I'll open up the notes app and I'll, like, you know, write down something, like an idea. Because the hardest thing, right? And I was telling a very sweet young lady that visited my booth over here this, because she said she wants to be an artist for a living, and like, what's one piece of advice? And I think she was thinking I was going to tell her, like, oh, like, you know, buy this specific model of drawing tablet or something, you know, specific like that. But I said, no, the most important thing that I could tell you is to really catch your ideas. Like, capturing your ideas is really hard. It's easier said than done, because you have, you know, like something like 60,000 thoughts a day, I think is the number, right? And, you know, they're always just fluttering all over the place like a bunch of butterflies, and it's your job to catch them. Or at least maybe the good ones, the ones that get you excited, the ones that interest you, because the odds are they're going to interest other people if you do catch them, you know? So, and that was how my first animation came about. I was, again, brushing my teeth, ready to go to bed. And I was about to go to bed, but I stayed up. I caught that idea, and it changed everything for me. So, yeah, my notes app on my phone, I'm always just documenting ideas that I have throughout the day, things that I notice. Sometimes I'll draw my finger to do like a light sketch or something. That's crucial, because all my inspiration comes from real life, all of it. You know, I'm from New York City, like, you know, I'm like looking around, like, oh my God, like, there's just so much things. But even like, in your hometown or your neighborhood, like, if you really take a moment to look around, the world is a wild place. You know, you'll look at I was walking home from Old Town last night, and I saw a cat, and I'm just like, I wonder if that cat speaks Lithuanian. You know, I was like, that cat has to speak Lithuanian. And it's just like, what's that cat all about? You know, just thinking like that, you know, life is only boring if you think it's boring. I think there's so much there, even though it might just seem like regular reality. You can make it interesting and surreal. So, and just document that. You never know what that's going to inspire, you know?
And so when you look at your notes and your ideas, can you tell fairly quickly? I mean, having been doing this for 6 years, can you look and go, okay, that's funny, but it's only funny to me?
You know, kind of, but so often I was proved wrong, where I'll make an animation about something that I thought would only be funny to me, and it just does so well, which just means everybody else's humor is just as weird as mine, and that's a beautiful thing, thank God. Yeah.
But you actually still do animations just for you then?
I guess so, and I think that's a good marker that it will come across as authentic, right? Because doing the ideas that genuinely interest you and that genuinely excite you and make you laugh or smile, that's typically a good indicator that it'll make others do the same. Yeah.
That's very cool. All right, so again, I'm going to ask any questions.
Oh, you're going to ask about my love life next if nobody comes up on that mic. Oh no.
We touched about that. Yeah. No, let's. You guys want to know about his love life? Yeah.
Crazy. That'd be crazy. Oh, we have one. Thank God.
Good. Thank God. Yeah.
Thank God.
Hi.
Hello. How are you?
So, since this panel is about social commentary,
Oh, is it?
I want to ask. Yeah. So, what are some of the social issues that you are most upset about? That's the first question.
Yeah.
And the second question is, do you know the saying that fiction beats life? No, sorry, life beats fiction?
Life beats fiction. There's a similar saying where you couldn't write this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so ridiculous that like a writer couldn't sit down
There's
and
a
write
Mark
this.
Twain. A Mark Twain quote says the difference between
Yes.
fiction and real life is that fiction has to make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my question is, what is the most unbelievable thing that has happened to you recently?
Okay, two very good questions. Yeah, social issues, you know, again, like something that really has always bothered me is, I think, how kids are still treated today. I think they're just not valued in the way that I think we should value them, and it gets better. But I think even the way that kids treat each other online and on social media, it's nasty. And I've always wanted to be a huge advocate for speaking for younger folks. Specifically, believe it or not, I've been really trying to speak more to younger guys, because I think a lot of guys in the world never admit or treat their depression and anxiety. It's a little taboo, right? And even just to talk about it is crazy. And depending on where you're at in the world, sometimes people pretend it doesn't even exist. And I think although everybody has it, you know, of course, guys are told just to swallow it a little bit more. And of course, being a guy who has dealt with these things, I could only speak from experience. There's just also not a lot of guys out there talking about these things online. And my hope is that over the course of my career, I could change that and I could talk more about it, so that young people and younger guys, you know, who maybe don't have that father, you know, you're a cool ass dad bringing your daughter up there on the stage before. But I think, you know, a lot of kids out there don't have maybe good parental figures in their life. And if I could help get this dialogue pushed forward a little bit, that would be a dream come true, to be honest with you. The second question was, what was the most unbelievable thing that ever happened to me? Well, I was just, again, talking about this. I only get to see my friends like catnip so often every time we're like passing through town to do these sorts of things. But we did a pop-up together, me and him, in 2019 in New York City. And just a random idea I had, I said, dude, how crazy would it be to just do a little thing here and see who comes? And so this is maybe a week. It was the weekend after Avengers Endgame happened. And the biggest movie, not in the world, but in history, broke all box office records, right? Who walks in the door to our little rinky-dink pop-up? It was the Incredible Hulk, Mark Ruffalo, with his daughter, Odette was her name. And I couldn't believe my eyes. He walks in and just with a big old Mark Ruffalo smile on his face and gives me a hug, and he's like, this is really cool, man. He stayed for the entire event, the entire night. He hung out afterwards, and he sent me an email afterwards that you know, I printed out and I framed it because it was so cool. So that was probably, Catnips and I were talking about this, the most unbelievable thing. I mean, the fact that even happened at all, but so quickly after the Avengers Endgame premiere, like he had a million other things he could have been doing, but he came to our little thing. That was incredible. I would say that's my answer to your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, I think that's actually our time here. So once again, we thank Danny Casale. Thank you guys for coming.
Take care. Thanks, man. Appreciate it, dude.
Enjoy the next panel.